or you may have missed over his illustrious career. But I start by telling you that on this Monday at 2 o'clock, I'm very mixed. There's a side of Evan that's very happy, pumped up. The Mets did their job this weekend against the Chicago Cubs. I told you on Friday this was a very, very important series, and they won it. Blew them out on Friday, got blown out on Saturday, respond with a huge win on Sunday night. Pumped up. Mets are playing great baseball. They're 2 games under 500. I'm happy. Why would I not be happy? But then the other side of me is pissed off at Rob Manfred and pissed off at these frauds that run Major League Baseball. Because you've got to explain to me, you have got to explain to Tiki, and you got to explain to Edwin Diaz why for some people, hey, your hands are too sticky, can you wash your hands? They did that with Max Scherzer last year. And you remember what happened? Max washed his hands and then spun a yarn that his hands actually got stickier. Whatever, not my problem now. Domingo Germán, wash your hands. Clark Schmidt, wash your hands. And here's what pisses me off about this. When those 3 guys, Tiki, were told to wash their hands, they had already pitched in the game, which means they may have recorded illegal outs, right?
Yeah.
They may have gotten outs.
In theory.
In theory. Edwin Diaz last night in Chicago never pitched. So let me get this straight, Commish. You guys and your umpires, your henchmen, will throw a guy out for never committing the crime because he never pitched. But these other guys, oh, wash your hands. It'll be okay. This is BS.
Right.
I had to stop myself.
Right. I can see it. You're very close to...
Because it's a joke, bro.
Here's the only caveat that I could throw in that maybe gives some explanation, because I agree with you in large part. It's very hypocritical how it goes, it's adjudicated in real time on the field by the umpires. Max Scherzer, Domingo Germán, Clark Schmidt were all starters, right? They were all starting. So they had been in the game during whatever inning, second or third inning, depending on whenever they got checked. They put some more rosin. They spit a little bit harder with some more loogies. No offense, loogie. Rub some dirt on it, and it just got a little too sticky. And so throughout the game, they are able to see the difference because they probably get checked once or twice every couple of innings, right? I think it's every inning now, don't they? Coming out the field. So you had a chance to, the referee, the umpire, had a chance to touch their hands and say, it's fine now. Touch their hands, it's fine now. Touch their hands, well, something's a little off here. It was fine before, go wash your hands. Whereas a reliever is different. That's the only difference.
What's the difference? Because he hasn't pitched yet?
Yeah.
So he hasn't cheated yet?
He hasn't cheated yet.
If you want to call this cheating, which I don't think it is, he hasn't done it yet.
It's not cheating because he didn't cheat. So there are clearly 2 sets of rules. It sounds like there's a rule. It feels like. I don't know the other... How many other instances of ejections were there? 7?
There's been
10?
8, and 3 of them are Mets. Right. Drew Smith, Max Scherzer, and Edwin Diaz.
So the other 5, I don't know the circumstances of because I'm just not aware of them. We could go do some quick research on it. But I would bet they're starters as well. And there are not relievers that are getting caught into this mix. And so the problem is that there needs to be 2 different sets of rules, clearly. Or maybe there are 2 sets of rules and we're just not aware of it.
No. Here's the problem to me, okay? And I understand that relievers and starters, they're different. Here's what I want. Because I would equate using sticky stuff to driving a little bit over the speed limit. Okay, that's what I think it is. It's not drunk driving, which is a serious offense, no matter how famous you are and how much you want your PR people to attack police officers for doing their freaking job, which happened this weekend. Disgraceful on the part of Timberlake and his people. And let's attack that he's a redhead. What's wrong with him being a redhead? What's wrong with him being a redhead? First of all, that's a serious offense. Like, I think we'd all agree with that.
Right.
Going a couple of miles an hour over the speed limit is not.
Yes.
And to me, using sticky stuff is that.
Technically, it's cheating, but it's not really because what are you really harming?
Well, and also, here's why to me it's also not cheating. No one wants to see guys ejected. It doesn't matter if it's Edwin Diaz, Clark Schmidt, or even Drew Smith last year. No one wants that. So what we need to do, what we need to be better at, is you always tell the player, hey, I think it's too sticky, wash it off. Max Scherzer is different. And I'll tell you why Max Scherzer is different. Max Scherzer, who I think is a liar probably, washed his hands, and came back with an even stickier hand. So I can see the umpire saying, hey, guy, man, we tried, bro.
What are you doing, man? Help us out.
We tried. We told you to wash your hands. And he had his whole cockamamie story about it got stickier. But in terms of a warning, give the guy a warning. Let him clean his hands. Because here's why I'm really pissed off to my fellow Met fans and to the non-Met fans out there. I wasn't pissed off about last night. I wasn't pissed off about worrying the Mets were going to blow this game. It is ridiculous that now Edwin Diaz faces a 10-game suspension, and the Mets have to play shorthanded. So they've got to have one short in the bullpen. Meanwhile, their starters, for the most part, don't go deep into games. The Mets are harmed for 10 days. And why are they harmed? Why are they harmed? They're harmed because 4 dumb umpires said that's too sticky. That's why they're harmed. It's a joke. You tell him, hey, this is stickier than normal. Wash your hands. I'll give you this. If he comes back and his hands are stickier, fine. Then he's a moron who deserves to be thrown out of the game.
Right.
But on the first warning to say you're out and forget just being out, a 10-game suspension, I call upon Major League Baseball to fix this. Drop the suspension. And by the way, to Rob Manfred and all you geniuses at Major League Baseball, I saw Edwin Diaz take his glove. I saw him go back into the dugout with his glove. Did you even get his glove? Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to trust the 4 umpires and say, oh, gee golly, he must be suspended for 10 games. This crap needs to stop.
Yeah,
it's affected the Mets greatly. I usually don't bitch about umpires or leagues out to get me, but I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. This is the 3rd time it's happened, each time stupider than another.
Right. Well, the challenge was that it feels arbitrary. Right, the challenge for interpreting this is that it feels arbitrary. It feels like we just feel like throwing Edwin Diaz out, and we're not going to give him a chance to rectify it. Right, in real time. He didn't throw a pitch. He gets ejected after arguing. Now, maybe maybe he was saying, I don't know, something offensive. I have no idea.
No, he wasn't.
I'm just trying to guess why.
Stop.
All of a sudden, he gets tossed without having a chance, like everybody else has been tossed, to rectify the situation. And so it feels like a bias. It feels like there is a bias or another set of rules for relievers. And I don't remember that being the case when this rule was instituted a couple of years ago. I don't remember relievers getting a different criteria that they had to meet. And so it feels unfair and it feels biased. Now, what is Major League Baseball going to do about this?
Nothing.
Nothing.
It's too late because they're going to suspend him for 10 games, and it's a joke, dude.
They're not going to do anything because it feels like Carlos Mendoza is just kind of like, okay, it's all right. Yeah, he was just a little too sticky. Like, why doesn't he come to his defense? Why isn't Carlos Mendoza getting himself tossed out of that game? And why is he not lambasting the umpires afterwards, right? Because what you're saying is exactly right. And how he doesn't feel that way, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why he's not defending Edwin Diaz in this instance, unless he's just so terrified of mighty old baseball and whatever fine he's going to get handed down for complaining about umpiring that he just says, it's all right.
All right, so I'm not going to defend him on this, but here's what I will defend him.
But he keeps not defending his guys.
I totally understand. Everything you just said is fair. I'm not attacking you back. What I'm going to tell you is right now, I always want to be honest with everybody, I'm a little biased. Carlos Mendoza's pushing all the right buttons.
Of course he is.
The New York Mets are red freaking hot. Last night, the conversation he had with Luis Severino, the look in the eye, the how you feeling, Louis, after he got that big strikeout of Cody Bellinger. He had done that earlier this season with Jose Quintana. I'm loving Carlos Mendoza, and I think most of us as Met fans are. And I think where the bias comes in is if the Mets were struggling, I would echo everything you said. And I'd say, why aren't you screaming? Why aren't you yelling?
So it's circumstantial for you.
Yeah, no, I'm admitting that. Right. It's circumstantial because you bring up a very good point. Why did the manager, after the game with the media, and even during the game when Edwin was thrown out, why did he just look and say, shucks, I guess it happens? Maybe he's tired of fighting the man. Maybe he realizes it's not going to do anything, that it is what it is. But I totally understand that criticism of him. But I am biased because the New York Mets are the hottest team in baseball, and he's the pilot. And he moved Lindor to the leadoff spot, and he's pressing all the right buttons. Right. And so I'm just being honest with what I think a lot of Met fans feel like. When things are bad, we're quick to rip the manager. Watch Yankee fans when we talk about the Yankees today. They'll find things to rip Aaron Boone about. And I think I'm the opposite right now because of how well this team is playing, which is why I said at the top, I'm very mixed right now. I'm happy. The Mets are playing great baseball. I'm mad at Major League Baseball. I feel like they're wronging the Mets way too often. And I'm also slightly concerned about the impact this is going to have on the Mets over the next 10 days. They play the Yankees. More on them later. They're still a good team. They play the Astros. They're red hot. They play a monstrous 4 games against the Washington Nationals, who surprisingly have been good. Those are huge games. Edwin Diaz will not be available, and the Mets will be minus a reliever in all of those games I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. And that's a little concerning. But the criticism of Carlos Mendoza, it's fair. Yeah. I get it. Why do you think he didn't fight back? Like, do you have a theory on that?
I think he didn't want to anger Major League Baseball.
But why would he be afraid of that?
I don't know. I don't know. But why else would you be so passive? Like, why else would you not stand up for your reliever?
Yeah.
Right? The one of the great catalysts for the Mets over the last couple of years. Obviously not last year because he missed it and not the beginning of this year, but you know what I mean. And so he's an important piece of this turnaround. Yeah. Right? He's healthy again. Yes. And he's not blowing saves, and he looks like a semblance of the Edwin Diaz that we all saw a couple of years ago. So why not defend him? And the only thing I could say is that maybe Edwin Diaz was actually cheating. Right? Maybe he actually did have some, pine tar on his hands.
That's the second level to this. Edwin Diaz was having a terrible season. Mm-hmm. Edwin Diaz went on the injured list. Edwin Diaz comes back, and in the limited time he's pitched well. Is it possible that Edwin Diaz went the route of others and said, look, I'm struggling. I got to figure this out. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll lube up my hands more than normal. Is that possible?
I mean, of course.
Is that what you're saying?
Of course it's possible. Do I think it's likely? No, I don't.
You know what?
I think he just does what he always does. Just like Clark Schmidt said, he still does as he always does. I just put some rosin on it, throw some dirt and spit and everything else, and then I go.
But you know what my answer to this is? Let's say you're right. Even though you're not necessarily saying it, maybe you're theorizing it. Let's say those out there.
I'm just trying to understand why the manager doesn't support the player.
No, I get you on that. And would that piss you off?
Of course it would. Especially in that type of situation. Not that it was embarrassing. I don't want to say, it's embarrassing.
It kind of was. It's national TV.
It's like you're getting labeled a cheater right now. And you haven't even cheated.
Yeah. I look at it this way with the sticky stuff. All right. Even if he was using an excess amount that he normally doesn't, and Edwin claims he was using the same amount of stuff. By the way, Drew Smith, who I know we all know stinks, but Drew Smith, who followed Edwin Diaz and also got ejected last year. We forget this. It was the Mets against the Yankees, so it was this time of year.
I forget this. I don't remember this.
I'll tell you why you forget, and a lot of people forget it, because it was forgettable. It was the Max Scherzer game, the game where Max Scherzer, imploded on the mound against the Yankees. Uh-huh. And in that game, the Mets were down by a run. Drew Smith came in and immediately got ejected. It was like the 7th inning of the game.
Yeah, I don't even remember that. Right.
Because it was forgettable, trust me.
Right.
And Drew Smith even said, look, I haven't done anything different. Like, I'm literally using the same amount of stuff on my hands as I did then. But even if, in Edwin's case, you're right, or those out there are right, maybe Edwin lubed himself up some more. Maybe Edwin's like, man, I got to try something else. I still believe that if you're umpires, tell the guy to wash their hands and move on.
That's the one thing that's not explainable.
I don't think
why they didn't allow him to rectify it.
It's like, here's the way I would look at it. It's as if I'm about to get into my car and the police officer knows I'm about to go 60 in a 50. And he's like, hey, don't go 60 in a 50. You know what? That's a good call, Mr. Police Officer. I'm not. And then I go out and I don't go 60 in a 50. No harm, no foul. I actually never committed the crime.
Right.
Now, if he tells me don't go 60 in a 50 and I proceed to go 60 in a 50, yes, he has every right to throw me out.
Right.
So if Edwin Diaz goes to wash his hands, comes back, and the hands are stickier, Max Scherzer style, fine.
Right. So what he effectively did was say, hey, Evan, don't go 60 in a 50. You know what? I think you're going to go 60 in a 50. You're getting a ticket.
Isn't it the same?
That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
But the difference is these umpires playing, Sunday Night Baseball, they want to get the heck out of there. They don't have time for Edwin Diaz to wash his hands before they catch their flight.
Oh, that's crap. That's crap. They don't have time? Then let's wait 15 minutes for Drew Smith to warm up. Have time. That's ridiculous. That has nothing to do with it. That has to do with Major League Baseball, and I put it on the top. Rob Mandfred and the crew putting too much of an emphasis on this.
Yeah.
I get it. They want to clean up sticky stuff from the game. They think too much of an advantage went to the pitcher. Fine. But let there be warnings. Don't have closers or former aces immediately get ejected from games. That's my problem with this whole freaking thing, because I don't think you realize how much of an impact this can potentially have on the Mets now for a week and a half.
Yeah. So it's now, I mean, the ejection is one thing, and it's almost fine. As a Met fan, you're just saying, okay, whatever. We still won, right? They handled it. It was okay. You didn't lose because Edwin Diaz was ejected. But now you have the Subway Series. You have a series after that. Houston series.
And then Washington, which is a big series.
Exactly. Where he's not going to be available.
He's available for none of those games, assuming Major League Baseball unloads a 10-game suspension, which I'm sure we'll hear about at some point today.
But that's automatic, correct?
It is automatic.
If you get ejected for sticky stuff, it's automatic. It's not like, hey, we're going to investigate it.
Well, you have a right to appeal. Well, here's where I'm confused about that. You just asked a great question. So my understanding from a year ago is that they, at Major League Baseball, the offices right here, evaluated Max Scherzer's glove. And they analyzed it and came back and said it was way too sticky. Did we all not see Edwin Diaz take his glove with him to the dugout?
Yes.
So what that proves is there's a fake investigation. Are they going to investigate anything? We're just going to be Ohtani all over again? Oh, yeah, we investigated it. Sticky. There's your 10 games. That's the way it seems to me, and it's not fair. I'm a part of the judicial system now. I'm a former juror.
Alternate.
Alternate. Yeah. This seems very un-American for Major League Baseball to just say, yep, guilty, let's move on. What the hell is this? What is this, a tyranny? Not Brandon, tyranny.
Right.
Did I get it right? Tyranny.
Tyranny. Yes, you just said it very, I don't know, oddly.
I did. We'll get your calls coming up on this. We'll get to the Yankees. We'll get to the Mets. There's a lot to get to, including when we come back, a conspiracy that's going around regarding Edwin Diaz and the Rat. Toll-free number, 888-808-1019. That's the toll-free number. We are going to celebrate Howie Rose throughout the day. So let's kick it off right now with our very first Howie Rose call. And I want to be honest with the great Howie Rose and all the fans out there. This one killed me as a New York Islander fan. Let's go back 30 years ago. The New York Rangers with a 3-0 lead on the New York Islanders in 1994. And Howie Rose was, of course, doing radio, broadcasting the Rangers right here on WFAN. And you may recall Mark Messier putting the final dagger in the Islanders season. Howie was very emphatic about it.
Kept in by Malakoff. His shot blocked, comes out of the zone. And here's Messier racing on a breakaway. Cuts in, he shoots, he scores! And that, my friends, will bury the New York Islanders. Mark Messier cashes in a breakaway. And the Rangers in 2:52, unless there's a miracle, will make it a 4-game washout of the New York Islanders. It's a 5-2 Ranger lead.
Powerful, frustrating, but another brilliant call. And you're going to hear a lot of brilliance throughout the day. And then, of course, Howie will join us at 5 o'clock. We are live from the Town Fair Tire Studios, powered by Town Fair Tire.